Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shelf Space with Kino Lorber, where we talk about all things physical media with Kino Lorber's head of acquisitions, Frank Tarzi. Today is actually dedicated to the fans, and we'll actually be spending almost the entirety of the episode answering your questions. So, thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time. And if you would like to submit a question for a future episode, be sure to sign up for our newsletter to get on the email list. If you have a customer service question, you can submit those at the link in the video description below. So, hey, Frank, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Have you seen any good movies lately before we jump into the audience questions? Any announcements,
No,
big
no,
news?
nothing new that I've seen that I've really enjoyed. I did watch something a couple of weeks ago, but I can't remember what it was. So, so no, not much. Uh,
Must have been,
no,
must have not been
it
that
wasn't
great
very
then.
memorable. I guess the last new thing that I kind of watched, I did watch the new season of Squid Games, which was enjoyable, but um, that's about it. I don't think I've.
Big cliffhanger.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good. I when this original season happened, I thought they should have ended it because it was. I thought it had a good ending, but then they became such a big hit that they decided to do two more seasons, I guess. So, um, yeah, as far as
Are you planning to watch?
we did an amendment that we added some more titles to our Paramount deal, and so I guess I could reveal one title. We're gonna release Billy Wilder's Sabrina on 4K. Um, the the classic Audrey Hepburn, Humphrey Bogart, and William Holden film. So that's going to be coming out on 4K, and we've also picked up the rights to the remake, which will come out on Blu-ray, but from a new transfer. Um, that's the one with Harrison Ford and Julia Ormond,
Julia,
and
I remember that one. Yeah.
I guess Greg Kinnear. I think he got the William Holden role. So yeah, so that will be probably coming out later. So the Billy Wilder will Sabrina's going to come out pretty soon. So we already have the
Cool.
master. We're just waiting to record the two commentaries. So
Any other announcements you'd like to make before we jump into the questions?
no, no, that's it. I mean, we also did a 20 film studio canal deal, which is 18 of the films are French, two of them are British. So yeah, so there's some really interesting titles there, mostly genre films, a lot of crime movies. I think we may have enough to do two more film noir sets. Um, so the French film noir box set that we released did very well. So I think we're gonna do follow ups to that set. So
Do you have a time frame for any of these?
um, they all gonna need extras, and we got to figure out when we're gonna actually get the masters and the subtitles and everything. So I would say most of them will come out hopefully by late this year to early next year. So
Got it. Cool. And are you watching the Oscars this weekend?
no, I don't think so. No, I used to
No.
like.
Okay.
It was such an important event for me at one time. Like I wouldn't miss it at all. But the last couple of years, though, I just don't like what the Oscars have become. And to be honest with you, I barely see any of the movies today. So if I, at least 5 6 years ago, I would have known like half of the films. Now I probably know one or two at most, and that's you know. So
Yeah. No, I know how you feel. I think I've only seen one of the Best Picture nominees,
yeah,
The Substance.
a
That's
few
it.
years ago, I tried to. I was like, you know what, 10 nominations. Let me see if I could watch all of these films. And I think it was the year the West Side Story was nominated. And I watched like 5 or 6 of the films, and by the fifth or sixth one, I gave up. I was like, nah, these movies are not very good. I don't want to waste my time. There was that Korean movie where Drive My Car or something like that, where like 4 hours
Parasite?
long, and I was like, after that one, I was like, nah, I'm okay. I think I don't need to watch any more of these. I don't know how many times
Well,
I would see a shot of a car going back to the left to the screen and then to the right of the screen. So
well, good luck to soundtrack to a coup d'etat. Just wanted to shout that one
yeah,
out because
well,
that's one of
we do
ours.
have our Oscar nominated documentary. This is 2 years in a row we've had that. So we lost last
Mhm.
year. Hopefully this year we'll win. So
Fingers crossed. All right, are you ready for some audience questions, fan questions?
yeah, yeah, go ahead, please.
We have a lot, so hopefully try to get through as many as we can. Start off with Hinspect is asking, is there a way to suggest movies that need to be refurbished and even put on DVD/Blu-ray? For instance, the movie The Pilot, starring Cliff Robertson, is a jewel that needs polished. It's only on VHS now.
Yeah, I mean, they could send, people could always send requests to contact at kinolover.com and it will be forwarded to me. Uh, I've said this before. Every film has their fans. A lot of these films have like real passionate fans and all. And I'm sure this person is a big fan of the Cliff Robertson movie. And not everything is available to us, first of all. And if they were, I don't know if they're with the price of the advance and the restoration and everything else, if it's worth our time releasing them, because in a lot of cases, the smaller films when we've released them, they haven't done well. And you would think by now things will be easier than it was and cheaper, and in some cases they are, but in a lot of cases they're not. So we have to be very careful on what we release and what we acquire. So that's why I would rather give a remaster something like Crack in the World, which you just announced today, coming out. I released that originally in 2010 or so at all of films. I would rather re-release something like that because I know it has fan base and I know it's going to do well. It's a science fiction film, disaster film. Than take a chance on a film that I don't think is going to do well. So, uh, but if they want to send requests, if they want to send lists, they could always send it to contact at kinolorber.com and the people there would forward it to me and I'll take a look at it. So,
That's great that they can do that. Matt Cicado is asking, what is your dream acquisition for a Kino Lorber special edition disc? If you have already released it, what is it?
well, from what I've released, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly was one of my favorite films of all time. So to do a beautiful edition of that, that was like a dream come true. Silence of the Lambs, some other ones that I've done that I really, really were huge fans of. As far as dream projects, I would love to do, The Getaway, Bullet, Steve McQueen films. War Eagles there. I would love to do that, but those films are not available to me. Warner Brothers is, um, and they were Warner Brothers, and there's other titles also. I mean, Night of the Jungle was one of those films that I was waiting to for years to release, and I'm very happy that we're going to be coming out with that very soon. I think it's going to premiere at Fantasia Film Festival, and we're going to give it a little bit of a theatrical release, and then after that's going to go on home video. We're working on the extras. We've already gotten some of the talent to say yes, which I'm very happy about, and so that will be it. But smaller films. Sometimes I know I've released a lot of films with Jean Paul Belmondo. Film of his from the '70s called Nightcaller. I think is a great, probably his best film, best action film. Um, and there's something like that I would love to release. There's other movies too. There's uh The Victors is a movie that I've mentioned before that I love that I think should get released. That's with Sony. Um, but yeah, I mean that's there's a few right there.
But all in all, in all the years that you've been doing this, you've released a lot of movies that you're very happy about, right? That you
Oh
would
yeah, no,
consider,
I've
like if you
released. One day I was just looking at the posters of my apartment, and I was like, "Wow, I've released a lot of these films." When I bought those posters 20 years ago or whatever, I didn't know I was going to release those films. I didn't know I was going to release Prime Cut or Escape from Alcatraz or Taking a Pelham 123 or um, you know those are like some of my all-time favorites, and the fact that I got to release them. Juggernaut, is another one that I have a poster for. Um, uh, but it is kind of funny when I look at the posters on my wall. I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm 3 Days of the Condor, Death Wish, a lot of these films.
Not too bad.
Exactly.
So David Hughes is asking, any chance of putting certain titles back in print on DVD, like limited runs? Appreciate why you knocked them on the head, but not everyone upgraded, and I've been buying most new releases, and some of the ones I missed, like Meteor, Link, etc. If
Um,
available, what would you give us some thought? Sorry, it's a little bit of a
did
long
you say
question.
Meteor and Link?
Hmm.
Well,
He gave those as
Link is out on
examples.
Blu-ray. I think the DVD went out of print because it just we have the rights to that. Meteor, we did not renew. Limited editions is not something we've known for doing. We've done it a few times. Um, these films all, you involve you paying in advance, you're doing authoring and replication and everything else. And I just we need to sell more than what a lot of these limited editions are. It's different when you actually when Shout Factory does that with some of the smaller Corman movies. They own the library, so it's a lot easier for them to do that. They release limited 1,000 units and sell it through their website at a high SRP. It's going to be a profitable release for us. For us, we would need to sell, um, at least 2 to 3,000 units at minimum for it to be a profitable release. So
That makes absolute sense. Travis is asking, will Kino consider reprinting previous releases that have gone out of print and are largely unavailable to collectors on a budget?
like this is the same question, I guess, but yeah, no. I mean, like I said, we've released a bunch. We released Gorky Park and um, Juggernaut and a few other ones I released in the last couple of years. Avenging Force and when we re-released them, we added subtitles, we added an extra or two and everything. And some of those have done well, and some of them haven't. The package, that's another one we released. Michael, the Andrew Davis film. But you know, case by case here or there, yeah, we would do it. If the studios were willing to license them to us for a cheaper price, um, or renewing them at a cheaper price, maybe I would do them. But it's like, that's not the case most of the time, so that's why we usually stay away from them.
Gomez is asking, when is your next major sale, like the holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas
It's the
sale?
last Thursday of March. That's when it's going to start. So that's what we're shooting for. We're going to have one that starts late March, one that's going to start late June, one that's going to start late September, and then uh, the last one is usually first week of December. So
That's exciting. Coming up, the one in March. Beto is asking, how do you go about choosing what to get rights to? Do you have a wish list of films you want to make physical copies of, or do you work with what's available?
well, not every studio offers you a list of films, so you have to know their library. You have to know what they own and what they don't own. Not just because it was released by Universal doesn't mean Universal owns it. Just because it was released by Paramount doesn't mean Paramount owned it. If it was released by MGM, it doesn't mean MGM owns it. So you just got to know the libraries. You got to come up with lists. Sometimes some studios do give you a complete available list, but even then, you go and ask for titles that they have that's not on the list and see what the reason is. Why is it not on the list? Sometimes it's just a mistake of them just not including it. Sometimes they come back and say, "Yeah, well, this has legal issues, music issues, whatever." Um, as far as acquisitions is concerned, how I decide, I've been doing this for a long, long time. I've been a movie fan since I could remember. I was one of my earliest childhood memories was 4 years old. I went to the movies with my parents, and first night at the cinema, I was like, "Oh my god, what is this? Why they haven't shown me this before? This is the greatest thing ever." And since then, I was a big movie fan, so I've always been a film fan. And I, being a buyer for a few years, and then being a salesperson and learning from my mistakes and everything, I have a very good idea of what's going to sell and what's not, and what should be released on 4K and what shouldn't be. Am I batting 1,000? No, nobody is, but I think I'm doing pretty well. So
It's like a sixth sense at this point,
it kind of is. It's almost
right?
like, okay, yeah, that,
Like
yeah. And then sometimes I notice something in our library. I'm like, oh, oh, we should have. This is something we should release on 4K. Why we haven't done it so far? And then you go back and then you ask for the rights, and sometimes it's done. It's the company, the studio is being cooperative, and they accept those additional amount, a lot of the times they come back and ask for something ridiculous, and you're like, no, it's okay. Keep your movie. So
and you said you're not batting 1,000, but it's pretty close, right? Like, would you say that it's very rare that, something that you release is a total flop? Like, most of the time you have
no,
a
no,
pretty
yeah.
good
If
sense
I
of what.
think something's going to be really big, it's never going to be a flop. If I think something's going to be big, sometimes it is disappointing. Some titles that I've acquired that I thought were going to do much better did less. But there's a movies that I acquired that I was worried about that did much better. And then in some cases, I acquired films that I really loved that I felt guilty about acquiring because you don't want to do that. I mean, I love Walt and Bill Olsen. God bless their souls. They passed away a couple last year, but they were very much obsessed with releasing films that they loved. And it was like they my also one of my favorite movies. And like Slow Dancing in a Big City was like one of Walt's favorite like films. But I'm like, Walt, this movie's not gonna sell. You're just gonna spend money on a new transfer. It's gonna come out on DVD and Blu-ray. Nobody's gonna buy it, and that's what happened. So I make sure that I don't go by my own taste so much because if I have my own taste, I would say about 40 to 50% of what I've released through Studio Classics, I'm big fans of. Other ones I'm not. But that's not. Years ago, I remember walking out of a screening when I used to pick up new films for the company, and my boss came to me and said, "What did you think of the movie?" I was like, "I thought it was horrible." He was like, "So we should pass on it." I said, "No, we should pick it up." It was like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, the art house fans will eat it up. It's like a perfect movie for them." I just couldn't stand it. So that's how you do acquisitions. Is like, can I just go by your own taste? You have to have the what, and sometimes you see a movie that's really really good, especially newer films. If a new movie that you just that's why theatrical is so much more complicated and so much tougher. That you go see a movie and it's perfect, but there's no hook to it. How are you going to get an audience to watch this film? And that's the toughest goal because like when you some foreign films are so you watch it and you're like, yeah, this is easy because it's this is gonna be easy one to promote. But then some you pick up and then like, no, this is a I remember seeing a movie that I loved and I came back to the office and I told my boss it was really great. This was years ago. This is when I was doing, like I said, when I was picking up the theatrical films too. I was involved in acquisitions of new films. And he's like, so how are we gonna get people to see this film? And I couldn't come up with an answer. I was like, it's really hard to promote this to him, and for that reason, we passed on it. So
Hmm. Yeah, there are those. Once in a while, there's a film that you just, yeah, don't know what to do with.
yeah,
But it sounds like you have a really good kind of gut instinct for this business and very democratic. You're representing the audience, what they want, not just what you want, or at least it's a mix of both. So I think that's great.
yeah. I mean, I wish there was a way where I could partner up with a studio and say, hey, how about I release these films at no, we don't pay you guys in advance. These are films that are just sitting around. Uh, we release them as limited editions. We don't pay in advance. We try to make sure that we don't spend too much money on everything else that it comes out. I mean, like people have always asked me, why don't you do more of this and more of that or more of this? And I'm like, yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could. But once you've paid in advance and all of that, it's just automatically you're in the red. So now you have to figure out a way to get out of the red. It doesn't have to be always profitable. You just don't want to lose money on them. When you do a deal that is crossed, where it means like you're paying for the whole package as one and not one film by film, those packages are a lot more successful because the big movies protect the lesser ones, the smaller ones. So the package that
Oh, that's
has, something major like Good, Bad, and the Ugly in it protects something like Soul Dancing in the City. Soul Dancing in the City, that loss is not going to stick out as much because you've crossed the deal. The cloud,
right. Yeah. Okay, great. Dale Knorr is asking, with the advancement of streaming media services, do you see the distribution of physical media declining and or going away completely in the near future?
it's already declining. It's been declining for a long, long time. I mean, I remember in 2002, 2003, we had a big conversation in the office saying that, oh, this is the end of physical media. I said, no, it's not. I just right away said it's not. I said, no. I said, yeah, it's to the major studios, it's going to be less and less. But physical media, that was like, I felt I said that was the best time for physical media because I felt that the vaults were going to open up to us. The vaults were closed for a long, long time. They were not, those studios were not only dealt with a couple of companies here and there. Um, so that's what happened. So, but now, yeah, with us, with all the labels that are there, and us, and then all the smaller ones that have come up in the last few years, there's so much more competition out there. There's a lot of movies coming out. Um, there's not much that's left outside of the studios that are not doing deals at this time. As far as the ones that continue to do deals with everyone, there's really not that much left in those libraries. So there's potentials of re-releasing stuff, new transfers or new extras and stuff like that. There's potential of doing 4K on some questionable titles. Um, but yeah, it's a slowly declining business, um, and it will continue to decline. Would it ever go away completely? Yeah, I guess one day it will. There's going to be times where how many more years do you think people are going to still build the machines that run the discs? It's not the discs I'm worried about. I'm more worried about, like, you know, are they going to continue making Blu-ray
Right.
players? Are they
Yeah.
going to continue making 4K players? When computers got rid of their disc players, uh, laptops all had disc players. All computers used to have it, and once they got rid of that, that's sign of things to come. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there are a lot of questions about that. I noticed about the disc players that we'll get to, but as long as the collector market stays strong, I mean, these businesses, they have to answer to the demands of the people, right? And the buyers. So hopefully,
yeah,
it's
but
kind
you
of
have to
like in the
understand
hands
it's,
of
it's not about just it staying strong. It's not strong. You have to be very creative now to make things profitable. You have to be very careful on what you pick up. What I did 10 years ago to compare to what, like, when I left for all of Film, so 2010, 2014, um, things were it was a lot easier to do acquisitions. First of all, a lot of films were not out yet. And second, it was also, um, DVD still meant a lot of business. So you would release things on DVD, and the DVD outsell the Blu-ray by 5 to 1, 6 to 1 sometimes. Um, so but that's no longer theirs. And as far as even Blu-ray, we do a brand new transfer or something and put it out on Blu-ray, and I'm like, oh, why not on 4K? Why not on 4K? Not everything could be released on 4K. You just can't. If we did that, we won't be around. If you really want us to be around for a few years, stop asking us to put everything on 4K. It's not gonna happen. Um, there's a lot of things that people have put out that I completely disagreed with, and a lot of those people I know, and they've come back to me and, you know what, you're right. We shouldn't have put that out. But no, it's not. I cannot say that this is not this business is going to continue to flourish. It's going to be tougher and tougher. We need our studio partners to continue being good partners to us and understand that things are
Mhm.
not that, hey, you got to bring some demands down, some pricing down, help us recoup some of the costs of the transfers and all those other things, which some studios are doing and some studios are not. Um,
Yeah, well, that's two sides of the coin. We also need, I mean, that would help to sort of buoy the collectors. We need people to continue collecting, and we need more people to get into it because, like, if there is the demand, then these businesses will see that there's a reason to maybe, be more competitive,
yeah, but
etc.
but
So,
realistically,
two sides.
we're not replacing the older person that stops buying. with the same amount of young people that are going to start buying. The younger generation that is getting into collecting is a much smaller percentage of kids. Most of these people are streaming. They when I tell people sometimes that I release discs, they're like, "Really? People still buy discs?" Uh,
I've met a few people in their 20s lately who are collectors, so maybe, I'm just optimistic. But anyway, we should probably move on to the next question. Bruce Bernstein is asking, given how Kino Lorber has released many films on 3D Blu-ray, could this company lead an effort to bring back the production of 3D television so that one does not have to rely on 3D projectors?
no, it's not something that you know. th- they stopped making those deals. So what we do now is we offer you both the glasses, and so you can watch stuff on the way people used to watch them. So you get the blue and red glasses, and I'm sure I actually forget what the term is, but we're offering you both versions. So if you don't have a 3D TV, you can still watch the films on TV. So the stuff that we released in the last 2 3 years included both formats, and even the 2D versions. Actually, three formats. So when if you want to, I know that when I just mentioned 4K players or Blu-ray players, companies will continue to do make those because they don't cost much to make. So if let's say Sony and Samsung and all the bigger companies decide not to make them, there will be another company. There will be some smaller companies that will make them and will sell them for $100 a pop on Amazon and places like that. So I think there will always be players. I don't think players are going to go away. The major companies may stop making them. So, but
Maybe that's
no,
something
but
that we
I don't
can
think we're going to
start.
be getting into the business of releasing TVs and stuff like that. No, that's not happening.
Gotcha. William Andres is asking, will there be more W.C. Fields and Bob Hope releases?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we released most of the Bob Hope films that I wanted to release. There's a couple of them that are with Samuel Golden. Um, they got me covered. I think is the one with him and Dorothy Lamour and Princess and the Pirate. There's a couple of PD ones that if HD masters of film albums became available, I would do. But as far as the ones that are currently under license, that are owned by Paramount and Universal, I don't think there's any ones that I would put out that we haven't put out so far. And WC Fields, I'm kind of thought about it. We did put out a large sum of the key films. Some of the lesser ones haven't been released yet. And I don't mean to disrespect to anybody there. Some people may think, hey, this is one of the classics. And like everybody has their opinion and stuff, but the majority usually decides what is a classic and what isn't. So, and what's going to sell better and what doesn't. So we released most of the key WC Fields titles. Um, if they had HD masters, maybe, but I'm not going to pay for new transfers. I don't think so.
Davey is asking, on 4K releases that have a theatrical cut and a director's cut, why do we often only get the theatrical cut on 4K and the director's cut on regular Blu-ray?
Because a lot of times the original camera negative is the theatrical cut, and the extended cut is only sometimes only an IP is available. Sometimes even that's not available. And when it comes to newer films, when it's digitally shot, like Cowboys and Aliens and stuff like that, for us to even release the theatrical cut was a huge nightmare, and something that we don't ever want to go through again. So most of the time, that's the case. In some cases, like Rampage, I think that camera negative was the director's cut, and so I think that one we're gonna probably include both cuts on 4K. We looked for the theatrical cut for a long, long time until we found it. Um, I think in a case like Mimic, I think the director's cut is shorter because if I'm not mistaken, I think Robert Rodriguez was hired by Harvey Weinstein to shoot additional scenes for the theatrical cut, and I think Guillermo del Toro wanted those scenes out, but so there's his cut is actually I think shorter than the theatrical cut. So that one I think we're probably going to include both cuts. I think I would have disputed. We actually, when we scanned the negative and everything else, we found out it's a longer cut than the theatrical cut. So that's also another situation where we're going to get a version I think that's never been seen before, or at least not on Blu-ray. So
Got it. And Bill Greco is asking, how difficult is it to get rights to release TV movies? A Valerie Bertinelli box set would be nice. Thank you.
I don't mean to laugh, but no, that box set. TV movies are as difficult as getting theatrical rights. I guess it's the same thing. It depends on the thing is a lot of those films are not cleared legally because the music is not clear. They were not made for home video; they were made for television. So it was cleared for television, but it was not cleared for physical media. So unless it's like a classic TV show, like I mean TV movie like Day After or something, which automatically got released on home video. Um, a lot of these you have to go back and clear. So some of the really good horror ones that Universal owns, and other ones they're not legally cleared. As far as doing stuff like dramas and comedies, no, I would never ever. I tried that with some Disney films that I had picked up, and I've tried that, and I think we did a couple through MGM. Walt released a few through me, and no, those are not so well. So we wouldn't do that. Even some of the horror ones, if it's lesser known horror ones, don't sell. So no, yeah, no, I don't think we'll be releasing a Valerie Bertinelli box at any time soon. So I'm sorry.
Sorry, Bill. Juan Lamas is asking, what is the cost to manufacture a disc? What is the profit margin?
Profit margin is not very big. By the time you're done with paying in advance for the movie, remastering it, especially if you're remastering it, authoring it, uh, replication costs, all of that. It's a lot of money involved. So I'm not gonna get into the actual amounts because people pay different amounts. Uh, People charge people different amounts. Somebody that I deal with maybe charges me less than charges somebody else. I don't want to mention actual amounts, um, but it's the actual profit margin is not huge. So you need to release a lot of films to make it profitable. So make it a very profitable. And then there's overhead involved, you know, and everything else. Somebody's got to pay me,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. So here's a question about players. Liam Billingham is asking, should we be worried about players being discontinued and have a backup?
uh, like I said, players will probably eventually the big labels are going to put out Panasonic and Sony, all of them. They're probably going to one day going to stop making them. That's going to happen. But I think there will always be region free players and stuff like that. Those are always going to be in the market. So I don't think we have to worry about that. They're not going to be top notch players, less than as much. And top notch players will sell for a lot of money, especially if they're in good condition on eBay and Amazon and places like that. So
They will also one day be collector's items.
they will be, yeah, yeah.
So Tom Tomlinson has sort of a question on a strategy for, related to what we were talking about, the decline of physical media. He's asking, in terms of physical media, how confident are you that the market for discs will continue to survive? I have over 50 Kino Lorber titles in my collection. I see many stories online declaring the end of the line. What's your perspective on this? Should I start buying backup, a backup player and accelerate buying back the catalog while they're still available? Is this something
Well,
that,
films
people
films are
should?
under license for short periods of time. If we don't renew it, it could be anywhere from 5 years to 7 years, sometimes less. Sometimes film go out of print after 3 years because the first 2 years we were trying to get the film released. Um, so they actually in the market for much shorter time. So if you really are a fan of a movie, buy it. It's good for everybody. It's good for you. It's good for us. Players, I said, yeah,
Yeah.
players. I said they're going to be around no matter what. There's going to be version. Somebody's going to build players. Players are they're not that expensive to make. So some companies going to make huge profits off that. As soon as the big companies announce that they're no longer going to make players, you're going to have the smaller companies celebrating. So, but
There you go. If
that's
something you
it.
like
So
comes out, just buy it.
as far as buying stuff, us no, we're going to be around for as long as anybody else, pretty much. So um, we're one of the best labels in the business. So um, I think I think we'll be okay. So
Well, that's great to hear. Stefan is asking, when will you ship Blu-rays internationally?
we can technically we cannot. I mean, there are companies that break the rules. Most of them break the rules. They ship internationally. We don't have international rights. We have North American rights. When Arrow picks up North American, USA, and Canada, and UK, those are the three territories they have. When Via Vision or somebody like that, Imprint picks up Australian rights, that's the only rights they have. When um, Shout Factory picks up US Canadian rights, that's the only rights they have. Which of those companies ship abroad and which ones don't, I'm not going to get into that. Some of them follow the rules like we do. We only have North American rights. So technically, we cannot ship these abroad. We'll be kind of
I
breaking
feel
the
like we
break
get
up.
this question a
So
lot.
if you are
Yeah.
interested in really buying our films, I know they want to be part of the sale, they want to get stuff. But if you really want to buy our titles, you could buy them from Amazon.com US. And there are a lot of other our companies that we deal with that ship abroad. So you could buy from them. They're not breaking any rules. They're selling them as imports. Um, but we cannot. So
So there is a way
yeah, there's a way.
for international customers to buy. That's
Yeah, I
great.
mean, listen, I would love to
So do you,
ship internationally. We would make a lot more money. We would sell a lot more units of our titles. The sales would be even twice, much more successful than they usually are. 4K discs are region free, so that's another big plus. Um, but we just can't. So sorry.
Taylor is asking, when choosing which library films to re-release in 4K,
We
how much does potential visual improvement factor into the decision? If a film released previously on Blu-ray can only be minimally improved with a 4K remaster, is it worth the effort?
a lot of that you don't know until you actually get into the picking up the movie. And when we picked up Invasion and the Body Snatchers, the Don Siegel version, um, you know, we had just seen the DVD, the previous Blu-ray, and looked amazing. So we went back. Unfortunately, they hadn't saved all of that stuff. So we had to go back from scratch and fix all the problems, and it became a very very expensive, you know, release for us. Yeah, there's sometimes if the film elements are problematic and you know ahead of time it's problematic, yeah, you would stay away from that. Any kind of three strip Technicolor thing or any kind of like 70 millimeter thing, which is going to be very, very expensive to put out on 4K. Those you would stay away from. So a lot of times when people ask about some movies, why has this never been out or why is this not coming out? There's a reason for that because the master will cost like six figures, mid to mid to low to mid six figures, and nobody's spending that much on a movie that's going to sell a few thousand units. Um, as far as there's also like another disadvantage sometimes. You know, we announce films sometimes really early. We tell you something's coming out. Labels from the other, you know, European labels, Australian labels, or whatever, French labels, where they usually hear that, oh, wait, this company's releasing this, you know, let's try to go get their master. And in some cases, they come and pay us something for it. In some cases, the studio has the master, so they just get them. We get them our master that we paid for. They get them pretty much free of cost, and then they go, "Hey, you know what? We could maybe do some additional cleanup on this." And then they go and do a little additional cleanup, and pretty much the master we paid for, they spend a couple of $1,000s and do additional cleanup. They come out with it in a different market, and everybody's like, "Oh, their master's better than Kino's." I'm like, you know what? It was our master. that we had a certain amount of money for that. This is where we had to cut the line, or we're gonna go. I wish I could be in a situation where everybody was restoring stuff in the UK, and I could go pick up their masters free of charge and spend another $2,000 to clean it up a little bit more and put it out and take credit for it. But that's not the case. The case is usually the opposite because everybody usually, especially because I'm never gonna
Those
stop
Right.
announcing stuff early, but because we announce
Mhm.
stuff early, they're all waiting around and hearing, well, okay, Kino just announced this. Good. Now it means we could get this master at a certain point. Um, so I see them like sitting around like vultures just waiting for us to announce something. So
Well,
that
I
that
hope this show has sort of educated everyone that just because something is announced doesn't mean it's gonna be a fast follow. Sometimes,
yeah,
now
that's another thing.
we've
You announce something and you run
experienced
into problems. You have the
right.
filmmakers not cooperating, um, or in some cases you think, oh, this is gonna be an easy release, and then you run into like Cowboys and Aliens. That was like a nightmare. So on Leviathan, it took us forever to release it because we couldn't get access to the camera negative because it was in Italy and they would not give us access. They were not responding to us or to MGM or anybody because the De Laurentiis family, they own soccer teams now and stuff like that, and they're not in the film business anymore. So
So, yeah, everyone just know if something is announced, be patient, you know. It'll it'll drive the anticipation, hopefully. Okay, so Steven is asking, how do you, Frank, organize your physical film collection? I feel like you've answered this in one of the earlier episodes,
yeah,
but
I
it's
used
been a
to have a
while.
huge collection. I used to have a very, very big records collection, CDs,
Okay.
posters, lobby cards, everything. Living in Manhattan, living in the city, you don't have that much room, so I got rid of a lot of stuff. Putting stuff in storage is an option, but like putting in storage is like you're paying for that stuff over and over again. By after a while, it's like you bought and rebought that stuff. I don't know how many times, so it's not worth it. So I just got rid of a lot of stuff. So I'm right now. My collection is films that I regularly want to watch. If it's sitting on my shelf and I bought it 2 years ago and it still has a shrink wrap, it's not gonna stay on my shelf. It's gonna go. That means because I've hadn't had any kind of like there wasn't a moment where I looked at it, I was like, I need to watch this movie. The films that I watch regularly, the ones that mean a lot to me, those are the ones that I keep in my collection. And unfortunately, I barely have any more records or CDs because everything is now digital. So
So of the movies that you have left, do you know roughly how many are still left in your
uh,
collection?
it's too many. It's still too much. It's
Still
very.
too
There's some movies it's very hard to get rid of. Even though I'm like, I'm probably not gonna watch this again anytime soon. But I'm like, yeah, but I really like this film. So yeah, so it's still too much, but it's gonna.
Oh,
I'm regularly cutting it down and replacing stuff and giving stuff away, and um, yeah.
But do you organize by, like,
Oh no,
alphabet
now it's
or
just alphabetical. It's just like I used to do stuff by director and actor, and uh, sometimes by labels. I have done that in the past. I used to have I know, my Kino stuff in one area and my Criterion stuff in another. But no, it's just alphabetical. Um,
nice and simple? Jeff M is asking, up to almost 200 Kino Lorber titles in my collection now. Thanks for all that you do. Why do many releases have an aspect ratio different than the original aspect ratio? Example, career opportunities. The Blu-ray was different from the release.
I don't remember what that was, but I think that film was a 2:3:5 aspect ratio. Some of the
Yeah, that is it. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's the correct ratio. The Some films got released on DVD at the TV ratio, which was 1:7:8. Because when they made the master, they made it for television, or they made both the home video version and the theatrical, and the television version. So there were some films that got released at 178 that shouldn't have been released at 178. It's bad. It's not that bad when you do that to a 185 film, but when you do it to a 235 film, it's uh, it's uh, it's it's wrong. So we have done, yeah. So we've most of the time what we release is we think is the correct aspect ratio. So just because somebody had released it at a different ratio before doesn't mean that theirs was right and ours was wrong. It's probably the opposite. In some cases, people argue about should it be this or should it be that. Um, so we offer both versions. In a case like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I want to keep on going back to that, but it was always 2.0, 2.0. It was always 2.0, 2 to 1. Um, but a lot of people think that originally it was intended to be 185, so we figured out a way to put it out on 185. For the first time ever, it got released on 185 by us, but we still offer the 2.0, the 2 to 1 ratio, so the fans don't get angry.
Gotcha. Um, Jay Willis is asking, there are several KAL Studio Classics releases that replaced in-demand out-of-print Blu-rays, such as High Noon and To Live and Die in LA. Is there anything other than rights issues that keep other out-of-print titles from getting a new release? And if not, why would studios not work on their own release of well-known and sought-after out-of-print titles? I'm thinking of both boutique releases like All of the Signatures, Johnny Guitar, and older studio releases like Fox's Laura and Once Upon a Time in America.
Um, we released High Noon both on Blu-ray and 4K, so we got separate releases. But we didn't put it out on DVD because that market is not. It's very unpredictable. You could release a title on DVD and it sells 400 units. Another one you could release it could sell 20,000 units. So depending on which film it is and how much demand there is, it's very, very unpredictable. As far as Johnny Guitar is something that we've looked into putting out, maybe on 4K, but we still haven't done it. Maybe in a future deal. Maybe somebody else will do it. Who knows? Maybe it's already gone and somebody already has it. Um, Once Upon a Time in America, I think it's out on Blu-ray. I think it went from Warner Brothers to Fox. I think Fox put it out on Blu-ray. It may be a different, as far as I know, it was out like it got re-released a couple of years ago. Um, and maybe not on, maybe no longer out on DVD, but like I said, it's out on Blu-ray. Laura, that's very easy. That's because it's Fox and Disney, and right now they're not releasing much of the older Fox films. I think Disney's putting out them big aliens and stuff like that out of French Connection and stuff like that. But Disney's not putting out a lot of the catalog titles. So a title like Laura would be something that labels like ours or Criterion or somebody like that would be really interested in putting out. But at this time, they're not available. So
Films from the American Pie franchise on the format.
um, you froze there for a second, but yeah, about American Pie. Yeah, American. I could see us doing American Pie franchise. I mean, that's something that is like borderline as far as 4K is concerned, but it all depends on how much the advance is, and they're easier films to remaster because they're newer films, so the negatives and everything is in better shape. Um, we have gone. We've been releasing a lot more comedy than we had originally. I was very much against putting out comedies even on Blu-ray, but comedies that have a cult following, that's why we announced Adam Sandler movies. We're putting out Black Sheep. We're putting out. We have put out already Spaceballs and Uncle Buck and other ones. Yeah, so we are gonna, the comedies that have like a little bit more of like more going for it, like some either cult or the action films and stuff like that. Those are the ones that usually more visual type of comedies are the ones we're usually gonna put out on 4K. But no, we are gonna probably put out more comedies on 4K. We're continuing to do that. This Paramount deal has a few, so.
Cool. That's great news. I guess we have time for one more question. James, Kislingberry is asking how, as far as physical media releases are concerned, do you feel it's better to have compromised transfer from the original or no transfer at all? In that vein, how do you feel about recent uses of AI to upscale films?
Um, well, I don't agree with using AI to upscale films. I don't. I think if you want to do a new transfer, do a brand new transfer, do a scan and but I mean, in some cases, if it's a digital film and it's digitized and it was shot of 2K or whatever, you have no other option, so you have to just do it up res. What was the rest of the question? I'm trying.
The first part was do you feel it's better to have a compromised transfer from the original or no transfer at all?
Well, a compromise transfer is better because you're going to use that as source to do a brand new transfer. So at least the color grading and everything has already been done. Unless they already screwed those things up big time, then you have to go back and fix those. But in most cases, even an older transfer, a source is good to have because you could use the older master to record your commentaries and even edit your extras and everything else. So it makes things a little bit easier for us if we actually have an older transfer available to us. And as far as the mastering is concerned, a new transfer, we do usually go back and use the old master as source for color grading. And in some cases, older master has uh, restored audio, so that's a step we don't have to take. We can actually put the audio from the previous master. So
So they are helpful regardless of, yeah.
yeah.
GU is asking, can we get more movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, please?
The Universal deal that we have currently going on has a lot of 30s stuff in it, some 40s and some 50s. We're going to continue putting 30s and 40s and 50s out. We just announced the Abbott and Costello films coming out on 40, the horror films coming out on 4K. That was announced last weekend. So we're going to continue doing them, but less and less risk. When the studios have already done some preservation work and some cleanup, or at least created some kind of a master where we could do additional work on, even if it's just a best light scan of a 4K for a 4K scan and just with no cleanup, it's better than not having anything. So, yeah, so we when we did this new latest deal, we picked up a lot of 30s and 40s titles from Universal. Actually, our original list was twice as big, but half of those films could not get cleared. They were musically not cleared, or other reasons not cleared. And just as legally, they were not cleared. So I don't want to say music. But I remember when we did the Universal deal, originally we asked for about 30, maybe 35 films that were from the 30s and 40s, and half of them were not clear. So we got the ones that they were willing to uh, license.
Let's see. Eric L is asking, in terms of artwork, why no UPC on both sides of the reversible sleeve? And then also, chapter discs are very rarely included. Is that a cost issue?
Uh, UPC, you're not supposed to put UPC on the reverse side. That's kind of like a legal thing. We've done it by mistake a couple of times, but you're not supposed to include it. You pretty much have to understand what's the front and what it's not. If you put UPC on both sides, they're going to be misprintings. They're going to put the reverse on the front sometimes, and we don't want that. So we have to clarify that this is the reverse. This is our choice. If you like the reverse better, you could flip it, and if you care about a UPC on the back, that's that's something that I have never heard of before. But fans are fans, so they have their own choices for everything. As far as chapters are concerned, we have the 8 or 10 chapters on each disc you could skip. To actually have a chapter selection is such an old thing, such a waste of time, such a meaningless thing. We used to name our chapters and then we eventually just numbered them. And then it saves a little bit of time with QCing and it saves a little bit of money with authoring. Um, we asked the authoring house if we got rid of it, would that be better for you? And they was like, please, yes, please get rid of it. So we're like, well, that was the reason we did it. So we were very good. The authoring house is, we have a very good relationship with them, and they offered us really good prices. So just to make their lives a little easier, we got rid of it. So
There you go. We have sort of a very heart-wrenching question here. Um, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too. Andrew Groves said our house in Altadena burned down in the Eaton fire in LA in January, and it took my library of approximately 1,900 Blu-rays, 4Ks, and DVDs, and among many of them were Kino discs, and which I have collected over a period of 25 years. Losing this has felt like losing an arm. Instinctively, we would like to replace many of the discs, but a good number of the titles are out of print or are exorbitantly expensive if they are available at all. So it's not like an insurance payout could ever cover the cost of rebuilding the library. Couple this with the sheer effort and expenses involved in tracking down such a volume of discs. I'm struggling with the justification for collecting in this way again in the face of such a catastrophic loss. Do you have any thoughts? I'm very sorry that happened to you, Andrew.
yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I was at the Saturn Awards a couple of weeks ago, and everybody got on stage and brought up the fact that all the horrible stuff that's happened down in Los Angeles area and Palisades and all that stuff like that. But the fact that you're still there and your family and your loved ones are still there, that's the most important thing for us. Losing stuff, it hurts, yes. But I would not say it's like losing an arm, but to some maybe it does feel that way. But to me, if I lost all my collection, I'm okay as long as if I forget about actual family members or siblings or kids, my pet, if I my dog or my cat would mean more to me than my collection. So for me, that part of it, I feel so bad that you lost films that you're not gonna be able to replace. I wish there was a way for those films to be re-released. Um, you know, if you know, if you want to send a list, I'm not gonna offer this to everybody. If you want to send a list of some of the titles, if we have them in stock, if we have them, maybe we could replace a few copies for you here and there. But just so you can send it to that contact at kinolorber.com, mention the show, and then I'll see what we could do. But uh I don't think we have copies of most of the songs ourselves anymore either. So, but we'll see. And again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss.
Very nice of you.
Sorry that you lost your collection
Yeah.
and your house and everything else, and it's horrible. But you know,
Well, that's very nice of you, Frank, to offer that. And yeah, that's you know, our hearts go out to anyone in LA who have been impacted. But yeah, I think that's maybe a good note to end on. Just a reminder that, you know, at least, you're still here and you're healthy and hopefully your family members are healthy and safe.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm hoping he had insurance, and some of the stuff would be taken care of. Like the insurance will take care of a lot of the regular stuff. I mean, I know those type of things. The DVD is not going to be very hard to figure out what the cost of something like that is. Uh, but the most important thing is that you're okay and your family and your kids and your pets and everybody is okay. Things could be replaced. Human beings and animals and loved ones cannot be. So
Very well said. Okay, on that note, I guess let's wrap things up. Thank you so much for everyone for watching, and thank you to those who submitted your awesome questions. Those were really, really great questions. And Frank, thank you so much for answering them and for your insight on physical media as always. You can find some of the titles we discussed today, along with thousands of others, at kinolober.com or klstudioclassics.com. Both of those links are in the description below. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you can also submit questions in the future. And be sure to follow us on social, and we will be back next month. So be sure to check back for episode 10. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.